we'll be looking at how we can add in a new management, which involves adding the owner, property, tenant, and as well as adding through a creditor. What you can see right now is the correct order how we can enter through a new management. The first step is to have your agency agreement signed. Then you can create the ownership, the property, and once you've found a tenant, we can create a tenancy profile. Let's start off with adding through the owner profile. To do so, go into Management. From this screen, you'll need to go into Manage Profiles and select Add Ownership. Simply select the correct trust account and enter through the name of the ownership. Tags can be set up within configuration. For example, owner payment run may be mid-month, end of month, or weekly, which you can see if that is set up within configuration, groups, and tags. We'll need to add the owner under contacts by using the plus button on the right hand side. Simply enter through the first and last name of that contact. Search for the address where the contact is living at the moment. You can select from a series of results below. Once you've found your answer, select that result and you can see the address filled in below. If the postal address is different, we can untick this box and specify what that address is. If you can't find that result through the search feature, you can type that through manually within the street field. We will then stumble across a section where we can enter through the phone number, an email address, or another means of contact, such as a website. All you need to do is use the plus button and specify what type of phone that's going to be and type it in. And same goes with an email address. All I need to do is use the plus button and type that through. If I want to add through another phone or another email, I can again use the plus button or use the X to remove that item. If you have entered more than one phone number or email address, you can select which one out of the list is the preferred phone number or preferred email address. Statement information. You can select how the owners would like to receive their statements and income and expenditure reports. You could choose either post, which means you can print off a hard copy of the statement, email, so through email, or both post and email. However, if you don't want the owner to receive this statement, we can select Do Not Send. In this case, I'm going to choose email. There are two different statement styles you can choose from, either basic or one property per page. By selecting one property per page, all properties will display on different pages. This is ideal if an owner wants all of his properties on separate pages. However, you can have it all based on one page by selecting basic. And you can choose whether that is regular or large font from the statement. You can choose the contact type, whether this is the owner, emergency contact, accountant, or other. If I select other, I can type through what that person is. You can select more than one contact type and proceed by clicking on OK. Once saved, you can see that contact appear under contacts, as well as their phone number and email address, and the actual address where they're living at the moment. You can edit the contact or remove, but if you want to add through more contacts under the ownership profile, you can go back and use the plus button. You can insert how the owner would like to get paid. To do so, within payment information, we can use the plus button to add that through. There are two different types of payment method. You have check or you have EFT. I'm going to fill in the EFT details. When you type in your BSB, you'll need to click on Lookup to ensure that it's registered with a financial institution. If you want to add the details for payment information for another contact, you can select the other contact and fill in their account details or check information. For payment type, I can choose whether that is percentage or a flat amount, which you can type in a fixated amount. In this case, I'm going to revert back to percentage. Now, if you had an ownership with 2 owner contacts and they would like to receive payment 50-50, what you can do with one owner is decide to type in 50%. Then for the other ownership payment information, you'll need to also add in 50% as well within their account details so that both amounts equal 100%. You could add that in as a comment and proceed by clicking on OK. You'll now see the payment details for this contact display. If you'd like to add through a fee for this ownership, you could use the plus once again. Lastly, we can type in the ownership ABN and specify whether that ABN is registered for GST and click Save to save the ownership profile. The owner profile is now added into Property Tree. On the right hand side, you'll see an actions bar where you can select an action from this list to perform against the owner. You're able to store a file note against the owner or even see which contacts are underneath this profile. Towards the right, you can communicate with the contact by using a mail merge feature, an email, or SMS if you have SMS activated under configuration optional features. If you add more contacts within the section, you can go to Actions and perform a bulk mail merge or bulk email for more than one contact within this area. When we are ready, we can add through the property profile. Information within the ownership profile includes outstanding invoices, account summary, last statement, recent communications and transactions. Also, the payment information, withheld funds, fees, tax information, and lastly, documents to store against the ownership profile. It's always a good idea to store your signed exclusive management agency agreements against the ownership so that in case you do lose it, you can find that within your document section. And what I've done is I've uploaded that file against the ownership profile. We are now ready to add through the property profile by using the plus button. Choose whether this property is for residential or commercial, which will entail different options below. And then search for the property that you are going to be renting out for this management. Then fill in the property details, such as the property type and the bedrooms, bathrooms, car spaces as well. Next, we'll need to fill in information which you'll find on your agency agreement, starting with the authority start date. And if it has an end date, you can specify what date that is. If not, you can leave that blank. Management gain date relates to when you start the management. That could be a later date, or it could be the same date as your authority start date. And select the reason how this management was gained. You can type in the expenditure limit which is displayed on your agreement, and also any notes reflecting can be displayed through here too. Then we can go to the advertise rent information. From here we need to select the correct rent account, make any changes to the rent description, and specify a base amount for rent. What we could do alternatively is change the frequency from weekly to maybe fortnightly or monthly, for example. Any fees that have been set up automatically will appear under the property profile, such as a management fee, which we can alter or remove from this screen. If you want to add through more fees, we can use the plus button. Once you're ready, we can proceed by clicking on Save. The property profile has now been successfully created. Again, you can see actions on the right hand side where you can perform anything from this list. We can assign a key to the property by clicking on here to assign one. We are able to change the key number and enter through a description. Then we can click on save. Now this property is key number 6. Any other property cannot use the same number as 6. You can choose to tag this property and also proceed by assigning a business role to this property, such as the property manager, leasing agent, and administrator for this property. You can assign staff to either one of those roles by using the pencil on the right hand side. We can add a file note to this property by going to Notes and using the plus on the right. From here we can choose the category which it belongs to and type in any note for the property. If you would like to have that set as a reminder for the future, you can choose to alert me on a future date and select which will appear in your Notes and Alert Center. You can leave it out and proceed by clicking on Save. To locate that note, go into Notes, Expand, and you can see that note display. Now you can't delete notes, but you can edit the contents within. From the property profile, we're able to see the property management information that we entered through from the previous screen, as well as property details. Once we have found a tenant for the property, we can add them through as a tenancy. The ownership is linked to the property. We'll also find from this screen recent transactions, any maintenance requests, inspections, smoke alarms, water usage, and down below we'll find advertised rent information and also fees. Any creditor that performs jobs regularly for this property can be added as an authorized creditor. REI Forms Live is an integration option which you can activate under configuration. What that will do is it will produce a form within the property profile. It will use the data that you have already put in and pre-fill that onto a form, for example, an agency agreement, which you can store directly under the property profile. Any additional documents for the property, such as photos, can be stored through here. When we have found a tenant, we can add them through as a tenancy under the property profile, again, by using the plus button. You can start to type in the tenancy name, and you're able to change the reference number on the right hand side. For example, the tenant might use an account code when they pay rent. We can identify that by typing that through here, how many digits that may be, and next time they pay rent, you can search for that same reference number and bring up this tenancy ID. When the tenant has signed a lease, we can tick the box to say the lease is signed and the rent information is finalized. I'll start to add through the contact for this tenancy. A key difference from adding a tenant contact is we can tick this box so that we can automatically email receipts and invoices to this tenant. Once you're happy, we can OK and add through this contact. If you have multiple tenants on the lease, we'll need to add those contacts in within here and use the plus button once again to add them through. If you have multiple contacts, you can select which one of those is the primary contact. Within lease information, we can put through the lease start date on the actual lease. The original lease start date is for your very first lease for this property. Your lease start date will reflect the latest signed lease. Because this is a brand new lease, we can leave it as the same date as the original lease start date. Now, if you do get your lease renewed at a later stage, we can go back to your lease start date and update with the latest signed lease. On the right hand side, if I was to change this from a 6-month lease to a 12-month lease, that will change the lease end date automatically. We're able to change the frequency on the right hand side from either months, weeks, or years. If you select User Defined, that means you can manually change the lease end date to anything you want. Or if you have a periodic lease, what we can do is remove the lease end date so that it's an ongoing lease. Now what I'm going to do is revert that back to a 12-month lease. Let's enter the date when rent is due to start for this tenancy. It could be on the same day as the lease start date, or it could be in a future date. For example, you might offer this tenant a week's free rent, so exactly 1 week from today, that's a week's free rent, and that 25th of September is when the rent start date will be. Or we could revert back to the 18th. We can confirm the amount that was agreed upon and put through the last rent review date and next rent review date for this tenancy. You can add a fee against this tenancy, and lastly, set up a bond and deposit against the tenancy using the plus button. Let's enter through the bond requirements by typing through how much is required. In this case, I'm going to put through residential bond. So with type, I'm going to select residential bond. If it was lodged directly, we can type that through as lodged direct, and we can put through a reference number from the authority and put through a description as well. And once we're done, we can click on save, or alternatively add more bonds to this section. Make sure you've checked the information below very thoroughly, making sure the rent start date and amount is correct. Because if it is incorrect, what you'll need to do is restart this tenancy by adding that through again with the correct information. Once you're happy, we can click on save. The tenant profile has now been added into Property Tree. Towards the right, you can see the actions bar, where you can do actions such as create an inspection, an invoice, or receipt, or even print off the tenant ledger. Scrolling down below, you can see any money held for tenancy, your lease and rent information, any changes to rent, your inspections, fees, vacate information, any recent communications or transactions, outstanding invoices, bond and deposits, and you can upload any document to the tenant profile, such as a lease. And that is how you can add through your management into Property Tree by adding through the owner, property, and tenant in that order. What you can do is start to add through your creditor profiles into Property Tree. To start adding, go into Managements on the left hand side. Then, under Manage Profiles, we can select Add Creditor. For a creditor, we can fill in the company details by using the plus button. We can start to type in the company name and selecting whether that is a priority creditor or not, which you can find further information shown, which labels them as a higher creditor when it comes to creditor payouts. Type through the ABN and specify whether this company is exempt from GST. And then we can search for the address below. We can choose whether this company likes to receive communication via email or via print. Once completed, we can click on OK. The company details will now display. If there is no point of contact for this company, we can skip this step as it's not a mandatory field. Let's fill in the payment information using the plus. There is a new payment method for creditors, which is BPay. Here you can type in the biller code, which will be displayed on their invoice, and click on Save. We can select the account for this creditor by choosing the item from the drop-down menu. Once you're happy with the information provided, we can click on Save. And now that creditor profile has been added into Property Tree. towards the right, you can see the actions bar where you can start to enter invoices, pay the creditor, or print their ledger. If we scroll down below, we can see any outstanding invoices or transactions, any jobs that they're on at the moment, last statements, recent communications, payment information, the default account, and lastly, we can upload documents into the creditor profile, such as an insurance policy. And that's how we can add through a management into Property Tree. We've gone through how we can add in an owner, a property, a tenant, and also a creditor. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.